What's up, everybody? Can y'all hear me good? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Check, check. Can y'all hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh, they coming in. Y'all can hear me. Good to hear. Thank you. Thank you. Auntie Aisha coming through. There she go.
What's up, y'all? What's up? What's up? Let me get all situated here.
Okay.
What's going on?
Nothing much. Nothing much. Just trying to make it through. I just got done talking to one of my cleaners. We just got the rehab I'm working on cleaned up, so we just about ready for pictures now.
Okay, okay, that's a beautiful thing.
Definitely.
What's
You know
up,
how
Uncle
it
Luke in the
is.
building? Um, are you still running? Like your job slow down because of COVID? Like
So from the you mean from like the realtor aspect?
no, no, investor.
Okay, so yes and no. Um, I kind of put the black bag on the window situation, and we
Say less, man. Say less.
right, we treaded lightly.
Say less. I understand.
Now I called the mortgage company, the hard money lender, like, and we'll definitely talk about that. So like, my situation was I called them, I wanted to adhere, but they said they want that payment, regardless of what's going on in the world. So I mean, with that said, it was like, all
Yeah.
right, I see it ain't no pics out here.
You know, the interesting thing is work didn't shut down everywhere, which is just, I mean, it's just unfair. Like in Southern California, for example, they didn't miss a beat.
Right.
So it's like, why would it be safer to work there than it would be to work here?
Right. Well, that was the whole issue with our like real estate as a whole here. Everything was put on hold because of the mayor. So like, we had to wait for him to give all of us the green light, even just from the sales perspective. And like you said, we watching our partners in Delaware and Jersey go ham, and we sitting in the house talking about some is that unemployment going to come through.
You know what? But you know, prior to was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, you probably wouldn't get me to say a good thing about Mayor Kenny.
Okay.
And now having with him having removed that
The
Rizzo
statue.
statue,
Right.
I ain't got nothing but love for the man.
Okay.
I ain't got nothing
Okay.
but love for the man at this point.
Okay. Nah, well, before we jump too much, let's introduce you, let the people know who you are. Even though you got the second house in Cali, you're gonna always be,
All day,
Philadelphia's
all
own
day.
right favorite auntie. You the Oprah of Philly. We
Facts.
love you, always giving us motivation and gems. So just introduce yourself, let the people know who you are for those of you who don't know.
Cool. What's up, y'all? So I'm Aisha Selden, and I am a South Philly born and raised investor. So, I mean, I'm mostly investing here in Philly. Actually, the place in LA, I don't even consider that an investment. If you like, I would never even tell anybody how much money I'm putting into this project. I'm that deep into just spending money for shits and giggles at this point. Pardon my French.
Nah, it's
Um,
all right. We go for it here. I don't know about you, but I got my glass, my wind down glass. So,
You listen, I'm ill prepared. All I got is some Coke Zero. I'm ill prepared, but
it's all right.
uh,
Well, you could let it go here. We appreciate it.
yeah, I've got a flight in the morning, so I gotta make sure I've got all my faculties and all that stuff.
I
So,
got you. I got you.
but yeah, so I do mostly rehab, long term rentals. I mean, that's pretty much like my bag here. I mean, I don't know. I think we've probably talked about it. By trade, I'm a licensed stockbroker. I'll celebrate my 20th year anniversary with my company on June 28th. So this month.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Not too many people stick with one company that long. I feel like I'm like old school, old school. Nobody stays around with a company that long.
But that
Um,
that in itself is the discipline that you have that you made it work versus
yeah.
like I tell people one of the things I realized just even I don't know if COVID I just was sitting down reflecting, but as I've learned different things, so like I've kind of done a little bit of this, a little bit of that versus if I'd have stayed fast and stayed straight through on one thing, where that projection would go,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So
It was interesting, and it's probably why I talk more about mindset and discipline than anything else, because when I came into working as a new broker right out of college, they hired like a ton of us right out of school, right out of college. It was like mostly 22 to 26-year-old, mostly white men. There were probably 3 or 4 black women and maybe like 2 or 3 black guys.
Okay.
In a room of like probably 100, 120 plus new brokers. I mean, literally the vision or the picture of every Wall Street movie you've seen, Boiler Room, Wall Street. I mean, it was just like that.
Sound the bell and y'all just let them loose.
Listen, and it was really like throw them all up against the wall and see whoever sticks.
Okay.
So, I mean, you literally had to, and they taught us like a bunch of like invaluable lessons. Even the guys that didn't make it. I mean, the emotional competence training that we got, a lot of the personal development training that we got. I mean, that stuff was invaluable. I mean, I talk a lot about, and actually I'm writing another book. I talk about coming of age twice, once as a young kid in the mud of South Philly, and then a completely different coming of age, in a white collar world that I had never been exposed to. And the type of training and development, the guy who was like a VP, he was like my boss's boss. He was like a military dude, and was like tough as nails. But I learned a ton about like just how to handle like my emotional intelligence, or handle myself, from an emotional competence standpoint. So, I mean, that was great stuff. So that's why, like, most of the stuff that I talk about is never like rocket science. It's never like, you're never going to get like a strategy. I mean, like some people who they don't know much about how to invest or where to invest. They might be like, wow, that's like some deep, like, but I keep it very simple. I don't like overcomplicate things. You got people who are out here doing all these like complex advanced strategies. And I'm like, no, I find a seller, I buy a house, I fix the house, I rent the house. Like, that's about as complex as I get.
Right.
There's so many other, like somebody asked me the other day if I invest in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. And I said, I think I have a fairly financial mind. And this has kind of always been my mantra, that if I can't understand something, if you can't explain something to me like I'm a 5-year-old, and it makes sense, like if I can't get it, if I can't understand it, and I tried to get somebody to to explain to me like the inner workings, like how does this actually work? And they couldn't explain it to me in a way that I could understand. And I said, no, like I don't invest in things I don't understand. So when it comes to buying a stock, I can understand that. I buy shares of a company. I'm a part owner of that company. I can get dividends from that company. I can get appreciation from that company. That I understand. That makes perfect sense. I can buy a building. I can insure that building. I can renovate that building. I can put a tenant in it, and I can collect income for life from that building. That I understand. It does not take rocket science to do that. So I tend to stick to fairly simple investment strategies, and that's what I tend to teach people how to do. I mean, I've heard some cool things along the way, but I tend to keep it fairly simple myself.
Nah, and I think that is like the struggle, I feel like, especially with so much information on social media, on the internet. I feel like people take in so much, and now they make it harder than it has to be. Yeah. So like you said, I think the multiple things you said that was super dope is you talk about, just say the average person's at their job for 5 years. In that 5 years, like especially coming out of college, you could simply go buy your first property just with that job and just start there. Just start there. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny because I'm doing consult calls now, which I'm actually enjoying. They're really fun. I did a handful of them this week. But it's interesting because people typically have an angle, and one of the things I like about my consult calls is there's no follow-up sale. There's no push. I actually like when people book a consult now after they've read my book, because they have an idea or a mindset already of just kind of how I'm going to lead them from, all right, here's what you're making, what are you spending? Like it creates a bit of a good frame of reference. But when it gets right down to it, when I'm talking to some folks, I'm like, all right, tell me what you're investing in. What are you already doing? And for the most part, they're like, oh, this real estate guru I talked to told me, don't put any money in my 401k plan. Don't put any, like I should be saving everything to invest in real estate. And And I'm probably coming at a lot of y'all's gurus next. But the interesting thing is like, if like let's, and I always try to just dumb things down to the very basics. But like, if I were to say to you, like, if you give me 50 grand, right? You give me 50 grand,
Right.
without you doing any work at all, I'm going to turn around and give you 100 grand, right? Then like that day or the next day, all I'm asking you to do is give me 50 grand, and I'm going to turn around the 50 grand that you gave me. When I give it back to you, it's going to be 100 grand. Would you do that? Right?
Yes. Right.
All day long. All day long, twice a day if you let me. Like I would do it all day long, right? But the interesting thing is that's participating in your 401k. It's the same thing. The numbers may be lower, right?
Right.
So you might be putting $50 into your 401k plan, and they're matching you dollar for dollar, so they'll give you 100. But you'll have gurus who will tell people, don't put money into your 401k plan. I'm like, well, but no one in their right mind, if I said to you, you give me 50 grand and I will immediately dig in my pocket and turn around and give you the 50 back plus an extra 50. So I'll give you 100 grand. Would you do that? Absolutely. Right. You just said you do that. But then you tell people, don't put money in your 401k plan, and they can get a dollar for dollar. They can get a guaranteed 100% rate of return by putting money into their, and do zero work. Are there like loopholes, like little things, like can you not touch it first? Like absolutely. But there's no way you can tell me that it doesn't make sense to literally double your money immediately. I mean, hell, even if your 401k plan is only giving you a 50-cent match on the dollar, you won't give up a guaranteed 50% rate of return and ain't got to do no work for it?
Right. Now, so I think that part comes from, again, like with that whole social media part, like it's so easy to get an audience or to get your own platform kind of thing. Like, so once people lock in on whatever it is they're locking in on, because they know,
right?
I feel like people are selling the fear or they're selling the hope kind of thing.
Right.
So in doing that, like, certain triggers,
Sure. And and people are selling stuff. It's like people want you to invest with them, so don't put money in your 401k. You can't touch that till you're 59 and a half. You can't, which is complete BS, by the way. I mean, there's so much stuff that you can do, so many loopholes that you can do, self-directed plans. Like I have a pretty substantial Roth IRA. I've been like kind of backdooring money into that over the years. I could literally take my Roth IRA, turn that into it's in stocks right now, but I could put it into a self-directed account. I could buy real estate inside of my Roth IRA. The rent's got to go back into my Roth IRA, but when I'm 59 and a half, which statistically, knock on wood, at some point I will be, those rents could literally come, I could just collect them all completely exempt from taxes. And if I bought $300,000 worth of real estate in my Roth IRA and then ended up selling it for $600,000, I could get all of that money tax-free. I don't have to do any, I don't got to do no 1031 exchanges. I don't got to worry about like deferring the taxes. It is a tax-free transaction.
So I would say just touch on maybe for the beginning investor, just working on that whole psychology piece of not getting caught up in everything. Because I think the cool thing, like you said, about whether you're doing stocks or doing real estate, there's 12 different ways to do one thing. At the end of the day, you got to figure out what works for you and what are your goals that you're doing and things you're doing. So can you talk about maybe what are some of the things that helped you lock in, or how did you figure out what you were pushing to be your goal? Like, how'd you come about the process?
So, I think one of the best things that I could have done was approach investing, while making sure that I didn't skip a lot of the pertinent steps. Okay. And I think a lot of investors go from I'm living paycheck to paycheck straight to I own now 3 rental properties because somebody like taught me how to backdoor my way in there, and now suddenly I'm a landlord. And I literally went from I couldn't even balance my checkbook. I couldn't even if I got paid every other Friday, I was broke by like every other Thursday at like 11:40 p.m. So people go from that to now I'm a landlord, right? And then they wonder why they have these massive issues with, I didn't have a good experience as a landlord. My tenant didn't pay rent, or if I had to evict somebody, now I'm in foreclosure. So there's so many steps between going from I'm living paycheck to paycheck to I'm now a landlord or I'm a savvy investor. And I think one of the things that was important for me, and when I'm talking to new investors, is there's a process for a reason. There's a whole lot of steps you've got to go to or get to between I'm living paycheck to paycheck to I'm now successfully investing in real estate. So
Okay.
in my book, Multi-Millions, I talk a lot about how to make sure that you are following those steps. You know, everything from avoiding lifestyle inflation. You know, we see people all the time where they go from making, let's say, 30,000 to 40,000 to 50,000 to 60,000, and their lifestyle literally escalates or increases at the same, if not a higher rate, than as their income goes up. So it's
Right.
like they're wondering why, like, why am I in this rat race? Why
I'm
can't
making
I
more
pay
money,
my
but it's
bills?
not feeling like it.
Yeah, like, you know, and it's because every time we get an incremental pay increase, we feel like, oh, I've been working hard. I
Go
deserve
get
a
this
new.
new car.
Yeah, I was driving a Honda, but suddenly a Honda ain't
It's
good
not
enough.
good enough.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like, well, nigga, since when? Like, you've been driving that. It's been good enough all this time, but now you got an $8,000 pay increase, and now you got to go from a Honda to a Benz or to a BMW, like, or whatever.
Right.
So I think that that's one of the issues that as people gradually, and I'm not saying that like if you go from making 40 or 50,000 to 100,000 that you can't enjoy some of the fruits of the labor or some of the benefit from the fact that you're now making more money. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that your lifestyle, your expenses should not increase at the same rate as your income, and that's one of the things that we often find way too much. And I talk a lot about that in Multi-Millions because we're always trying to keep up with everybody else. So we want, it's like stuff that we have that validates how successful we are. I mean,
Okay.
literally, if you were to see me on the street, I saw one lady, like, I guess she follows me on social media, and she was like, "Hey, Aisha," and I looked down at myself, I'm like, how the hell does she even recognize me? When I tell you I looked a wreck, I mean, I had like a dog in my arms, like my cat was like, the brim was busted. So, I don't know why. I mean, we could probably write several books on the backstory of why things make us feel like we're accomplished.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that, and I like in Multi-Millions, I talk like step 7 is flex on every MFer who thought you wouldn't be successful. So I get the flex, but the problem is that often comes way too quickly. People start flexing
At
way,
step two and a
way
half.
before they should. Yeah, listen, they just got the $10,000 pay increase. They done flex. That's it. Like mama made it.
Nah, so I'll be transparent. Like, so I've been talking about it, telling people like COVID has taught me a lot on the good and the bad, and even from the part of like, so last year and the year before, I had a crazy run. Business was great, everything was rolling. And then I
Yep.
got married last year. So I dropped that money on the wedding kind of situation. Like, yo, I'm doing good.
Yep.
I'll be able to get it back. So I
Yep.
wasn't tripping.
Yep.
COVID came. I can't go outside. I can't work. Like,
Yep.
how do I get it back? And I'm not diverse where like I do the stock. So I literally have purchased my first stock 2 weeks ago.
I love it. What'd you buy?
Um, I ain't even gonna lie and tell you I remember. I bought 2 stocks and I just said, turn it off, let's see what happens.
Okay. I love it.
I bought some cheap stuff, but I'm like, yo, I got this $50, let me try it real quick.
Yep.
So like I'm slowly gearing into that, but like you said, I realized for me it was one, thinking I'm always gonna be able to do it and not
Yep.
being prepared for the what if, or if it's not on me kind
Yep.
of thing, and then also being okay with I don't need to have the flex because of my peers, social media, or because of X, Y, and Z. At
Yep.
the end of the day, I'm definitely like, I was already doing it in regards to essentials, but now like I'm super locked in.
Yep.
Groceries, tuition, household expenses.
Yep.
We don't
You
need
know,
none. We don't need too much more after that.
I think it's really cool, and you brought up a really good point because I know you're a real estate guy. I know that by trade you're an agent, right?
Right. Yes.
And I think that speaks to a great point because I think far too often real estate people are just real estate people. Stock people are just stock people. So
Right.
in the office that I work in, there's several partners, and myself and one other guy are the only 2 partners that invest in real estate outside of our primary residence. My real estate partner, who is, she and I have been buying deals together. We buy some deals together, some we don't. We do individually. She's got millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate, runs a very successful daycare business, doesn't own one stock. And that's my real estate partner. We've been working together. She's a partner with somebody who's, a licensed stockbroker, and
Right.
I talk a lot about, and she's like, like that's not her thing.
Right.
And the neat thing about ownership and assets is you can pick your poison. You know, you like, if it's stock, sure, do your thing. If it's real estate, sure, do your thing. I like diversification because I think that every single business is cyclical. Very rarely do you see a business where that thing is just always churning out profits.
Right.
So, you know, me personally, I try to live by the mindset that there are always going to be periods of feast and there are always going to be periods of famine.
Okay.
So, I mean, we literally saw from 2009, March of 2009 until basically March of 2020, we saw the longest bull running market in history.
Right.
The longest and the highest, right? So and people were eating, like, you know what I mean? Like, people were buying, like, you literally a team of monkeys, a crew of like untrained monkeys could throw a dart at a stock board and
win.
money. Right.
Oh.
Like winners.
But it was the same thing in real estate, because you got to think how many overnight gurus, like I just was on somebody's page, like looking, and then like somebody else I know knows them. They're like, yo, he's running it up. I'm like, I know man. He's got 2 deals under his belt. Where's the run up? And I'm like, I'm not mad at it, but at the same token, it's like we're gonna see who's really out here, who can really bump the bump now that COVID done hit and the market's changing. So ironically enough, real estate has bounced back from COVID. Yep. So like houses are selling on the market, overpriced, multiple offers, like it was in like 2018.
Yep.
But at the same token, the money's just not coming as fast as it was. Like they ain't lending, 580 credit score, no docs down. You could get 100, 200 grand to go buy and flip a house now. So like now you got to really have your ducks in a row with credit. Yep. Or having cash reserves to make it work for these people to give you money, especially if you don't have the experience.
Yep. And, like you said, it was easy money, especially in real estate. I mean, anybody that was buying, if you were buying, especially in Philly, between like 2010 and 2018, it didn't really matter what you bought, unless you literally screwed up intentionally. You made money. And,
right.
and those same folks are out here like guruing, saying, here's how much money I've made. Like in any, like, of course you made money. You bought properties, and that's, it also sometimes kind of hurts the message. Like people say to me all the time, well, Aisha, you said you bought this property for $56,000 and the house right next door just sold for $400,000. I'm like, yeah, but that's also an anomaly. I mean, we literally
that's not everyday deals.
Yeah, that's not how appreciation doesn't typically go from $50,000 to $400,000 over a 8 or 9 year period. That's rare. So the question is, can you figure out how to make money during a famine? Can you survive during a famine? And that's why I tell people all the time, when things are good, when cash flow is abundant, when jobs are plentiful, take advantage, not necessarily to ball, but to stack. Because when the famine comes, how well prepared are you going to be? Like back in November of 2019, and it wasn't even a popular tweet. I tweeted that landlords should have 6 months worth of reserves for every single property that they have. Just 6 months worth of reserves. And people are like, it was crickets. Like nothing. And that was in November of 2019. So if somebody has started working on getting their reserves up from November of 19 to February, March-ish, that would have helped. Now, fortunately, on a residential side, we haven't seen, I'm collecting most of my rent, but there are investors that are out there where their tenants are not contacting them back. They know they can't get evicted. And they're like, look, they leaving them on red. Like, no, I ain't paying no rent. And, you do what you got to do. So what happens with that landlord who has a mortgage? Most landlords have mortgages on their buildings. So that's why we act broke and stack during periods of feast. So that when periods of famine come around like this, and we don't know how bad yet this is going to get. We don't know. You can't tell me that there's going to be zero implications in the real estate space of 15 to 20% unemployment rates. You can't have 1 out of 5 Americans out of work, which is basically World War II type unemployment levels. That's not very far off of Great Depression level unemployment rates.
Right.
That can't happen for an indefinite period of time without some sort of ramifications on the real estate or the housing market. I think what's saving the housing market, a couple of things are saving the housing market right now. One is low inventory. So there's not a whole lot of
Right.
stuff on the market. Yeah,
And
so
that's driving multiple offers on the
yeah,
table.
so
I'm
that
talking
would
about
keep,
in all price points. In all
yep,
price points.
yep. So that would keep prices relatively stable, and plus interest rates are just ridiculously low. I mean, I talked to someone who they must have locked in on like the day to lock in. I mean, it was like probably the perfect recipe of what. I mean, I think they said they had a 2.75% 30-year
So
fix.
some banks have a promo that they were running before COVID hit back in November, and because one of
And
my clients got
that's
it,
crazy, crazy.
and and that's how he's qualifying for a $400-something thousand property because the
Crazy.
interest rate is crazy low.
Yeah, no, 2.7. I mean, that's free paper. I mean, that's free. That's damn near free paper. It's nuts to get anything sub 3. Hell, even anything sub 3.25 is just nuts.
Right.
So,
And I also would ask you in regards to just like you said, you touched on so many things right there in regards to being disciplined, saving up the money reserved. Because I feel like just take the real estate out of it, the average person doesn't even have 1 month's reserve
yep,
for their household situation. I
yep,
talked to a couple financial coaches, and they're like, if you don't have $1,000 in your reserves, like there's nothing we should be talking about in regards to credit repair, or buying
yep,
property, or anything.
yep.
So
That's Dave Ramsey 101. Like, if you don't have at least a grand stack, because arguably most emergencies that we'll face, it'll be like $1,000. You need some new tires. You need like something comes up. Arguably $1,000 should be enough to cover emergencies. I literally had to tell a consult call that I just had. That was my first plan of action for her. I said, look, the first thing I need you to do is I need you to write down what your take home pay is, and then write in what all of your fixed expenses are, like your rent, your car payment, your insurance, your cell phone bill, whatever you have to pay on a monthly basis. And then you come up with a bottom line number of what your discretionary income is. So what's coming in versus everything that you're spending.
mm-hmm.
That discretionary income number, that's what I need you to focus on using to help you get at least first $1,000 saved. And I'm not saying you got to. And the crazy thing is, you'd be surprised how many people say, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And then they sit down and do that exercise of here's their take home pay, here's my net
mm-hmm.
income,
mm-hmm.
and then subtract out all the things they have to pay. Not like all the dining and grocery, not because you have to pay for groceries, but
the clothes,
not like all the dining
that,
out, clothes,
the Starbucks every day,
yeah,
the lunch every day,
subscriptions, like all the BS that we add in there. If you put your top line income and then everything you have to pay, daycare, rent, mortgage, like all the stuff you have to
mm-hmm.
pay, that number that's left over is usually startling to people. I mean, it's like startling.
Right.
Like, where in the hell's that $800, sis? Like, where is it? And you'd be surprised that if you don't accurately account for, all right, here's what I have coming in and here's what I have coming out. It'll just disappear. It was a $300 ATM run here or there, and then did you eat $300 worth of hot dogs? Like, where is that? Where is that money? So if you don't make a mental and conscious decision, and that's I think one of the biggest challenges. People go from not yet figuring that part out yet first, and then it's suddenly like, I now own multiple rental properties. And it's like, if I kind of see each of us individually as like small individual businesses. Our personal financial situation is basically like a small entity. It's a smaller version of a business. We have our own cash flow sheets, our own balance sheets, our net worth statement, our budget. Like, all of that is indicative of things that you look at, like if you were a company. So you can't go from not yet mastering that to suddenly I'm running 3 LLCs and I got expenses, like I got all this stuff. It's like, and you never mastered that. Of course, it's going to be a disaster.
No, so I mean, I can tell you, like, when I first got out there, like after my first property, like you said, that second property, a third property, I thought I was the man. Yeah. And I know for me, I was living at my mom's house at the time in the back room, so I really didn't have no expenses.
Yep.
So like when you talk about, like, I wasn't even doing the Gucci belts yet. I had 2 cars, 1 note, 1 paid for. And other than that, they say it ain't tricking if you got it. So, I'm out here running these Philly streets.
He said, I'm out here.
I'm out here. But then it hit, like you said, like, I had a couple repairs and I'm like, how am I supposed to pay for this? Ain't they supposed to pay for it? Oh, wait, I own the buildings. And now I got to tap into my personal reserves because I also had a job at the time to pay for it. And it was like, this is that part they talk about being an adult and being a
Yeah.
business owner.
Yeah.
I need this. Don't touch the rental money. So I do
Yep.
like every 6 months, you keep saving that money, saving the money. Then you give yourself a percentage.
Yep.
Then run another 6 months, give yourself another percentage. And
Yep.
if you're lucky, you get something. But meanwhile, the buildings take care of themselves. The buildings pay down the mortgages,
Yep.
unless you are able to start out without mortgages. But if you got mortgages, the first thing you do, expenses, pay for the expenses and pay yourself later on the
You know, you,
properties.
you'd be surprised. I talked to an investor a while ago, and this story will probably haunt me forever. I'll never forget it. She came to me. She said, "Look, I'm losing my rental property," and I'm like, what's going on? She's like, "Well, they're foreclosing on my property. I'm talking to the tenant now, just kind of letting her know what's going on." And I'm like, "Well, how long has the tenant not been paying rent?" And she said, "Oh no, she's paying rent." And I'm like, "Well, but hold on. How's the mortgage?" I said, "Is the rent not covering the mortgage?" "No, the rent's covering them. It's more than a mortgage." And I'm like, "Well, where's the rent money been going?" Well, I needed that to take care of some stuff I had I had situations coming up, so I was using the rent money to, take care of stuff I had going on. And I'm like, no, like that's not that wasn't even your money to spend. I mean, that literally, you, like, as a landlord and you got a loan on your building, you are basically like, kind of like a conduit between, like, I collect the money from this person and I literally hand it over to this person.
Exactly. When I go to you go to the bank and they be like, "How you want them?" It don't even matter how I get it because it's going to this situation anyway.
It doesn't matter. Like, this ain't my money. I'm just here, like, I'm the middleman, basically. I'm collecting it, giving it to you, and then, so there's so many steps of discipline that we have to perfect along the way, along the process, that will make us far more successfully as investors when we get there. So, that's why I tell people, like, enjoy the process, embrace the process. The steps are there for a reason. Remember that meme that people were posting a little while ago was like a kid who was literally like going from the bottom step and he was like extending his foot all the way up to the top step.
Okay.
And it basically, like, it was like all the steps that you miss in the interim, going from, like, here's where I am today, trying to advance, leapfrog all the way to where I want to go. And I get it. I get impatience. I get, like, we want to get there fast, but at the same time, there's a lot of valuable lessons that happen during that process that I think that people unfortunately either skip, miss, or some guru done hype man them up and sold them on, like, business credit, and suddenly you just out there and you're making all the wrong turns.
So can you share maybe, I guess, anything, Lord, just share, I guess, the good parts that you would say has really been your saving grace of your discipline, other than, like, the saving, like some of the intangible things that has kept you grounded throughout the way, to get to where you're at now?
I don't really know if I understand the question, but
so, like, in regards to, I guess, the intangible things, maybe might be like you said, like, all right, I'm doing these savings, but then I also, for every ABC thing I do, then I'll take a vacation. Like what are some of the things that are in your routine or that you're really strict about that helps keep you going and pushing to where you're going, like to where your long-term goal is?
Oh yeah, no, there's no fun. It's never fun. No, I'm just kidding. So one thing that
your face is so serious.
I know, you're like, oh shit. So here's the thing. For me, I kept my job. You know what I mean? So it was never a matter of me needing to rely on rents to celebrate.
Okay.
Because I don't have to use my rents. We hear that kind of like mantra of, like, I can't wait to quit my 9 to 5. I'm like, no, screw that. Like, especially if you've got a job that can provide flexibility, or if you've got a career or a business that you're running that can give you the flexibility to get done a lot of the other stuff that you need to get done. So for me, I essentially decided to use 100% of the income that came off of my real estate to reinvest it back in that business. So that to me looked like using the rents to pay down the mortgages at an accelerated rate, using the mortgages to build a reserve fund, making sure that using the rents to build a reserve fund, using the rents for basically paying contractors for new acquisitions, like all that stuff. I mean, I can entirely reinvest all of my rental income back into that business. Um, all my partying, my celebrating, all that other stuff, that comes from a whole other business that I have. So I've never had to like, okay, one more rental and I can do better, or I can, upgrade my lifestyle, or I can like, because I don't rely on any of that specifically for lifestyle stuff. And that's why I think, I posted earlier today about making sure that you have multiple streams of income. If you have multiple sources of income coming in, because don't get me wrong, I'm not struggling. You know what I mean? Like I talk a lot about like here in Philly, you might see me in a hoodie with dog hair and like, a pickup truck, but at the same time, I've got a Porsche out at a house I'm building basically from this, from scratch in LA. So I absolutely take the time to flex and have fun. But I don't need tenants to do that.
But I would say that's really your discretionary income. So like other people got Netflix and all the other stuff that, like you said, where's it going at the end of the day? Like,
Right.
but for you got a whole building that you put everything. Like, I'm pretty sure if you were able to quarantine in that house in Cali, you'd be okay for a couple months by yourself.
All day. I'm looking forward to it. Listen, when COVID 20 or whatever the next COVID is, I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna just sit in that backyard. I'm getting a little hammock between them palm trees, and y'all figure it out. Because most of my businesses, I can, and that's what I like about. I mean, in this digital, technologically advanced, and I'm not the best tech person, but I can run most of my businesses from a laptop and a cell phone. So, okay. I can work really from anywhere. This week I think I did like 50 conference calls this week for like my actual 9-to-5 job. But I can do that stuff and deal with my real estate stuff simultaneously.
Nice, nice. Do you have any like books that, of course, Mud to Millions? So where can people get that book from?
So my book, Mud to Millions, is, and I'm running this entirely like in-house. I mean, that was really important to me. There's Gumroads, which I know is one of the popular platforms that people launch books and courses and stuff on. We wanted to do it entirely in-house. So that's actually on my website, Mud,
Okay.
the number 2millions.com, mud2millions.com. It's a digital copy currently. I just signed some paperwork with a publisher to get some hard copies because folks are now asking for. I'd actually even like a hard copy of the book. So my book is more on like personal money mindset, and the next one that I'm doing now is going to be more real estate specific. But other books, most of the books that I like, because I don't really read like guru self-help books. Most of the books that I like are personal development books. Some of my favorites from many moons ago are 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Who Moved My Cheese, The Millionaire Next Door. Like in my mind, I kind of like fashioned my book, Mud to Millions, kind of around the concept of Millionaire Next Door. I mean, it's literally how you go from nothing, which most of the people in our community have, to hitting your first million. And a lot of that speaks to some of the principles that can be found in Millionaire Next Door. I mean, it's like literally not caring about most of the crap that we're kind of conditioned and taught to care about, and just making sure that you choose your future wealth and your future prosperity over and over and over again. That's kind of one of the quotes in my book.
And even like, so from the Millionaire Next Door, for you, I guess, what resonated in you or what clicked for you to say, hey, that's what I want? Coming from the stuff that we grow up seeing is like, you either see the drug dealers or the basketball players, like, stuff like that is cool. But for you, you dove in the Millionaire Next Door and said, I want to get to this point. So like, what resonated in you for that?
A lot of that was just the journey that I think God had for my life, because no cap, like I was about to sell drugs. Like,
okay.
So for me, like it dawned on me early, like, all right, drug dealers in our community, they have the money. Like, right. All right, so I was like, oh, all right, so I was working at McDonald's. I was 16, 17 at the time. And I was like, all right, I need to figure out a way to like flip this money. So me and a girlfriend, she was like, I was gonna come up with the capital because I was a saver even at 16. I was gonna come up with the capital, and she was gonna buy it and distribute it at her school. We had a whole little business lined up, and
Oh, you had the whole situation
oh no,
together.
listen. The girl don't play around. I was on Twitter as Griselda Blanca, like Griselda Negra for a reason. Like I mean, I'm from South Philly. Like you don't really grow up in South Philly like without just
You
being
see it.
influenced.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
but,
right.
I mean,
You see it.
and not only South Philly, because South Philly today looks very different than the South Philly like back in the 80s when I grew up.
Right.
So oddly enough, one night my mom comes in my room and she's like, look, I don't know, whatever you're thinking about doing, don't do it. And she had no way of like knowing. I hadn't talked to relatives about it. This was something I was
That's
keeping
that
under,
mom
like,
intuition.
Listen, I'm not a very religious person. My mom is, but like if ever a time where somebody says like God speak to someone, he was absolutely speaking to my mama. So my life could have been entirely different. You know what I mean? Like, who knows where that would have ended up going. But so after that, so I just, when she said it, I kind of acted like I didn't know what she was talking about. And then I just dropped I dropped the plan. I was like, all right, well, we just going to like chuck that idea and just keep forging forward. Yeah. So when I came out of high school and got into college, and then I started my first job, I started like sitting down with clients who had the kind of wealth that I wanted. I mean, I was looking at their bank statements, their investment statements, and I'm like, yo, these people got millions, but they don't look anything like what I was trained that wealth or what I thought wealth looked like. Yeah. Right. I mean, these people, like, it got to a point where I was I then became completely reconditioned, where if I walked out in the lobby, like the shabbier they looked, I would be like, good money. Like, I pull
You knew what type time it was.
Pull them fidelity statements out, sis. Like, I'm here for it. Like, let it be an engineer with some loafers on and like no name, like some khakis.
Right.
Honey, like, let's see them Vanguard statements. Let me see how many millions you got. So that to me was when my mindset kind of like clicked, like, all right, so wealth is not what I thought it looked like. It's not flashy. It's not like, and don't get me wrong, you got like the Kardashians, you got like, you got a lot of people who
different, right?
Yeah, they wealthy and they ball. But most Americans are in fact, who are millionaires are in fact the millionaire next door. They got there by like sacrificing and discipline, basically.
Yeah, one of the first millionaires that I met, he's an investor, older guy. Like, he's got his office is horrible. He's still writing receipt books, and he got like boxes of just receipts. That's how he operate.
Yep.
But when you see him, he got those tan khakis on, a shirt with the pocket ripped right here.
Yeah.
And when I knew it was bad, like, or thought it was bad at least, I'm like, man, this ain't the person I'm supposed to meet. My man had them New Balances, and he had cut the fronts of them off to wear them like flip-flops. I was like, yo, this is just how he rocking. He cut the fronts. He's like, I'm not buying it. That's what he was wearing. And I'm like, what? But then when he took me to like the parking lot because he was getting in his car, he got the Lexus truck. And then we literally drove like on one block. He owns 6 houses on one block. Yeah. And he's like, I ain't got no mortgages on them. Yeah. He's like, I'm thinking about slowly retiring. So he's like, I'm going to sell them right now. He's like, but just these right here, not the rest of them.
See, that's a different kind of flex. That's my kind of flex. That's my Philly flex. Like when when I'm out in LA, all my friends out there, they're fancy. They're like, LA's just a fancy city. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, so when I'm out there, I'm a little different. But that's not my norm. But when I'm here in Philly, I feel far more comfortable being in a beat, in a beat up little vehicle with my 380 like sitting right next to me. I feel far more comfortable not, flashing and being glitzy. And the same thing. It's like I could use my rent roll to increase my lifestyle, or I could use my rent rolls during periods of feast to bang down these mortgages so that if something were to happen, and that's my position today. Like, if all of my tenants didn't pay rent, I would be fine. Like, they have 32 tenants. All 32 of them could not pay rent, and it is what it is.
It wouldn't skip a beat.
We would not miss a meal.
Nah, and that is powerful within itself. Where you sleep at night. COVID,
Yep.
no COVID, you could
Yep.
sleep at night. Like
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie. Like when COVID first hit again, I was nervous because it's like, what's my tenants gonna do?
Yeah.
Again, I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared. And
Yep.
then it was like I was trying to get everything back in order. So it's like to hear that is like, all right, like yo, you can do this. Like that's
Yep.
why I was like, yo, people have to hear Auntie Aisha keep talking about this because I don't think they take heed to this message until we got another '08 or '09 on our hands.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean it's it's just making different decisions. And I know like my Twitter crowd, they're different than my Instagram crowd. And they're always like, Auntie keeps talking about stay low and keep firing, but I want to come up a little bit. That's what Bees, one of my girls on Twitter said. And I get it. I get that we do want to reward ourselves for some of the success. And I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, don't be miserable because what works for me may not work for you.
Right.
Yeah, it may not work for everybody. However, it is important to make sure that you're not overextending yourself and make sure that if you are going to take some of your profits or take some of your revenue that you're getting from some of the hard work that you're doing, either at a 9-to-5 or other businesses that you have, it is important to make sure that like you don't increase your lifestyle at the same rate as your income's increasing. Because if something happens in one of your businesses, if something happens with a couple of your rentals or something like that,
you got to shift.
Yeah, you got to be, and we all grow and build and scale at our own different levels. I say all the time, I could be infinitely wealthier if I wasn't I'm actually fairly conservative. Because for me, I spent most of like 2011 to 2018 paying down mortgages. Had I, instead of paying down mortgages at such an aggressive rate, used all of that capital to buy more properties, in retrospect, that probably would have been the move. But for me, it's also important to know that I can sleep at night. Like having a lot of mortgages over my head, like that, like I wake up in cold sweats. Like, did I pay everybody? Who I owe money?
So can you talk a little bit about the BRRRR strategy, I guess, and your gift and your good and bad about the BRRRR strategy?
Yeah, the BRRRR strategy recently has been getting a bad rep. I actually love the BRRRR strategy. I used the BRRRR strategy for years, and if I had to do it all over again, I would do the same thing. The issue with the BRRRR strategy, and for those of you who don't know what the BRRRR strategy is, it's when you buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then repeat the process. The issue that most people have with the BRRRR method is they end up just taking too much capital out of the building. So once they buy it, they reno it, and then they get a tenant in there. If the building appraises for $200,000 or whatever the number is, they take out like so much of they squeeze, they bleed that equity dry. And in a lot of cases, depending on the appraiser, depending on how well you know the banker, depending on all these circumstances, a lot of times these investors are getting appraisals that they know are bogus. Like, sis, you knew that appraisal was too high. And you still went ahead and
took that money.
75% worth of the equity out of there at a way too high appraisal. So suddenly you're carrying this huge note on this building, and you're like, you're one recession away from not, and you did that 10 times or 20 times or 30 times. You're like one good recession away from not making it. It's a house of cards. It's just waiting to fall. So when I was doing the BRRRR method, so keep in mind, it was at a super low market. So when I was doing the BRRRR method years ago, my Point Breeze properties were only appraising for $100,000.
Okay.
So I'm talking 15th and Reed, a 3-bedroom house was appraising for $100,000.
Right. Not the new 300,000 and 500,000.
Yeah, exactly. So we're talking, I was getting super low appraisals because we were at the bottom of the market, and I was even still saying I'm only pulling out 60% LTV. So I had baby mortgages. My mortgages were like $300-400 a month. So if my tenant was coming in paying $1,000 a month, my cash flow was good. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna take all of the cash flow from that tenant, and I'm gonna throw the whole thing on this mortgage. What I would do is I would focus on the smallest mortgage that I had, kind of like the snowball method. I think they call it debt pay down.
Yes. Yep.
I would take the smallest mortgage and all of my excess rents. I would just throw them on that smallest mortgage and pay that mortgage off as soon as possible. I still do that today. I think I have five mortgages. I started one out this year at $72,000, and it's right now at like $49,000. I'm not throwing my rents at it. I'm throwing like my consult calls, stuff like that at it, because I'm using my rent roll to do rehabs on old stuff in my inventory. But
all that money is still running your own business without you dipping into your personal money from the 9 to 5, which is you spending it all in the same house, which is amazing.
Yeah. It's the crazy thing is, because I reinvest so much back in my business, I reinvest so much back into my rent rolls back into, my rents pay my taxes, they pay my maintenance, they buy me new properties. Like I just looked, and we had $10,000 come in today from rents for tenants who paid today. I'll take that and I'll give it to the demo guy next week who's starting on a 5-unit building, 4 or 5 unit building we're about to do.
Okay.
So, I mean, literally it's like, I'm not excited to see 10K. I'm not thinking, all right, 10K just came in.
What can I
today,
go buy?
So, yeah, what can I go buy? No, I'm about to get that to like a crew to get started on a new building that'll bring me in $4,000 or $5,000 a month. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So.
Nah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And everybody keeps saying where to get the book, mudtomillions.com, or just go in her bio, hit the link in her bio.
Yeah, so I'm here on, I'm on IG. I guess you guys can see me on IG, Aisha Selden. I'm on Twitter at Aisha Selden, and the link in my bio will take you straight to be able to pick up my book.
They're gonna cut. We got 8 minutes left before they cut us off, I believe, or it'll let us know. But so, what's next for you outside of the book? Like, where do you see you taking this real estate business for you in the next 3 to 5 years?
Somebody just said pin it in the comments. I don't know how to do that, so
I'm trying to do it now.
I don't know how. Like I'm awful. So what's next? Honestly, I want to break. I want to relax a little bit. I'm at that point. So I'm building my place out in LA as kind of like an oasis. My goal is ultimately to be out there maybe 40% of the year, because I want some downtime. I'm ready to chill a little bit.
Okay. But that's a good thing to have, being that, look, you done ran it up, you got to where you need it. You like, look, I could take this time out, and you could do this on your own time. You don't need COVID to take a break. Right. You're gonna take your own break, which is a beautiful thing. Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hey, Ian, I'm in LA this weekend. If you're around.
Oh, your LA folks is in here too?
Yeah. Actually, the agent Ian, the building that I'm working on now out in LA, he was my agent, great agent.
Is that the gentleman that when you do your Instagram videos of the building, is that the gentleman that's walking through?
No. That's my designer, Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in there spending all my money. Like he's like Mr. Fancy in there, like picking out $2,000 tub fillers. Yeah. So the goal is to once I'm done my inventory. So I have, I think, 12 more units left in my inventory, which is 3 unfinished buildings, all multifamilies.
Okay.
The goal is to finish those buildings, which hopefully I can do in 2020. And then from there, it will be a breath of fresh air to not have. I've literally spent the last few years rehabbing buildings that I spent the last 5 or 6 years aggressively buying. So when that's done, I think I'll probably be looking to scale. I may even go outside of Philly, hit some markets like maybe a Memphis or maybe parts of Ohio.
Okay.
Where I can get the only issue is to finish that statement, where I can get like a 10+ unit building or 20 unit building or something like that. The only issue is I don't like. The reason I like Philly is because we can buy relatively cheap here and still get decent rents. Okay. I love the notion of I can get $1,000 a door. No matter where I am really in Philly, well, at least where I invest in Philly. If I'm in West Philly, if I'm in Allegheny West, if I'm in South Philly, certainly, I can get $1,000 a door. So if I got
Right.
a 3-unit building, I can still get. I mean, I'm on 15th and Erie, getting roughly $1,000 a door. I'm in Overbrook, getting $1,000
Right.
or
But
more
that
per
end,
door.
you create a beautiful product too. You're not out here
Always,
just
always. No, no, no.
cutting corners
I ain't giving nobody no trash.
with the
Yeah,
industrial carpet and
yeah. No, no, no.
the
You ain't gonna
grade
have
one cabinets.
Yeah, you ain't gonna have carpet in your living room in one of my properties. So I like a market where I can get $1,000 a door. So some of these are the markets that I'm looking at. It's like their tenants are paying like $500 a month or $600. I'm like, 500. Like all the work that we do.
Right. Atlanta's coming up, and the buildings are cheap in Atlanta too. I've been networking with some people out there.
Where in Atlanta? I mean, I like the hood. The issue is like, is there a big hood market in Atlanta?
So near the HBCUs. So like on the outskirts, they've been like almost like Philly, they've been like revitalizing. I'll find out the name and I'll text it to you.
Okay.
But they've been like revitalizing the area and like increasing the public transportation.
Okay.
But it's like the hood literally here, the HBCUs, and then like the suburbs right across the street.
Okay.
So like they're like, yo, it's all coming up and it's coming up super fast.
I used to always look at downtown Atlanta like, one, why does everybody live so far
Somebody
out?
just said the West End. That's what the West End near Clark.
Is that what it's called, West End?
At least that's what somebody just said. So, but I'll check with my guy because he's a realtor down there. So,
okay,
and he's heavy down there.
Got you. Somebody just asked on here, do I take Section 8 tenants? I'm a Section 8 licensed or certified landlord. I don't currently have any Section 8 tenants, and it's not because of the tenants. It's because of the program. Like it's a mess here. Like their inspection process, it takes you forever to finally get a lease signed. Like all of that is just I don't like headaches. So That's the only reason I don't have any.
But people again, when you build the reputation that you have, you don't necessarily need Section 8 because people know you have a great product, and on top of that, the other tenants are telling their homies about the houses that you get them. So your waiting list is probably decent that you don't even need that.
Most of my tenants come from referrals from other tenants. I mean, I probably get a text, not probably once or twice a week. I get tenants,
right?
Yeah, asking, do you have any vacancies available?
Okay. And then before we cut us out, how do you feel about flipping properties?
I think it's a good way to raise capital, but I would make sure that I still had a way of generating income without having to do that work. Okay. So, if you need capital to buy a long-term rental, flip or wholesale, do it, do whatever you got to do to raise the capital until you can get to the point where you can hold the long-term rentals.
Nice. So, and that was what I did. I switched gears in the last year or two to started flipping. Like after we had that conversation almost 3 years ago, to be able to start buying my properties without relying on just the mortgages.
Yep. So you just gotta, the only thing with a flip, because I kind of liken flipping to playing a game of musical chairs. You know what I mean? Like you just gotta make sure that all your numbers are super tight on a flip, because if you got this flip set up and suddenly the thing can't move or can't sell,
can you still rent it?
Yeah. Can you still rent it, or can you drop the price so significantly and still not lose your shirt in the event that the market pulls back right when you're trying to hit the market?
Right, which also made me nervous with COVID. I had bought a house February of this year, right before COVID came, and I told myself I was going to wait, and then COVID came. I was like, I didn't wait long enough, but the numbers still work. We bounced back, so actually we're going to hit the market next week, and we're going to knock this thing out the block.
Good, congrats.
Thank you. Oh, and they said it is West End in Atlanta. So if you want to check it out, it's West End. There's a couple of people in the comments saying like, yo, Auntie Aisha, we got you. Just let us know. Let us know when you in Atlanta. We got you.
Oh, shucks. Thank y'all. Well, I know we're about to get cut off. I would come back on, but I need to pack for my flight in the morning.
You good. You good. We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank y'all. Everybody be safe. Everybody
and then one more time, just let them know where they can reach you. I want to make sure people got the opportunity to get your book and your contact info.
Yeah, y'all can find me here at Aisha Selden on Instagram and Twitter, and you can pick up my book at mud2millions.com, mud2millions.com.
Hey, Auntie Aisha, I appreciate you. Safe travels, and anybody else as well. Check out Real Estate 100, the Teen and Millennial Investment Blueprint, written by myself. That's also in my bio. We appreciate you. Safe travels, and we're going to look forward to doing this again.
Cool. Thank you. See y'all. Good night, y'all.
Thank you.